Good morning and welcome back from welcome back to from graphic journal to graphic novel. This is a format that I'm recording mostly for you on Patreon, and I want to talk about my process to go from the graphic journal to graphic novel, and also like keeping you update about my next graphic novel, the graphic novel I'm drawing right now. Maybe you already read my, if you speak French or Italian, you may have read Play with Fire or Transformer, and let's light a light. Maybe better, I don't know. Maybe you read those two books, or if you are Italian, you maybe also read Bortolouz, or I don't know. Anyway, I have published a few comics and graphic novel for in Italian and in French for now, no English speaking and reading. But the idea of this year was like documenting the process, and I have talked a little bit, like I guess generally until now. Let's put a candle here. But it's been a week. I've spent my whole week at the library because the idea of this book, it's like, let's go dive into the idea of this book. The idea is to talk about masculinity as a trans man who have lived as a woman or perceived as a woman for 40 years. Sometimes I find my way in going to the world now, the way people relate to me, and yeah, there are shifting in my perception that I want to capture in this book, in this next book. This book will be like part of this series I've started with Play with Fire, which I posted in the past year on Patreon in the hashtag comics to read or the collection. Maybe let me know if you can find it. I can send you the link to the first post. And now I'm posting Play with Fire every Tuesday morning on Instagram, 10 page a day, 10 page a week. I want to publish, put all the book in English. I translate it by hand, by me. Yeah, this was a book about, I guess, sexual orientation coming out. When I came out as a lesbian, but also there is some consideration around gender. And the thing is that I continued this in my book Transformer that came after. And of course, the questioning of the Play with Fire turned into a gender transition, as you can see. And so in Transformer, I talk about this, like a transgender way of knowing myself and loving myself and all this stuff. I guess it's, I didn't post it yet in English. It's only out in French and Italian, but maybe once I've posted all the Play with Fire on Instagram, I will do also Transformer. And this book that is coming after will be a book around, okay, I have made my coming out, my coming in, my transition. I live as a man. People who don't know me, don't know that I'm trans, maybe they call me Mister, at least when they see me, not on the telephone. And I have a partner who know me, and it's like, I don't know how to say, but like all is cool, perfect. But I wanted to explore a little bit more. This is what I do. I now know my work is defined as autofiction. Autofiction. I just discovered this while reading a paper about my work. I guess it was Alice Parrinello, or anyway, it's. I guess it's she tell me this, defining my work as a autofiction, and I like this auto theory, and I love this so much, like autofiction and theory, and together, because I'm a very big nerd of theories, book theories, gender theories, queer theory, and I want to talk about this in my books, but also I don't have, like, I'm not a scholar, so I don't have and also I don't want to do a book about theory. I want to do a book about life. But in this next book, so it will be the same graphic mood, color, and messy, and theory, and lived life, and all this stuff. But also what I want to do is I want to do a parallel. I want to put another life but mine, and I guess it will be a sort of the story will be like an alternation between my life in the present moment and then some sort of flashback drew in like a black and white with pencil, so a very different also way of presenting the page. And in this flashback, there will be the life of Lou Sullivan. I had this idea because a few years ago I've read this book, which is we both laughed in pleasure, Select Diaries of Lou Sullivan, and I don't know how I arrived on this book, probably from this, maybe on Instagram, maybe I've been influenced by a trans influencer, but I know that this publisher, Nightboat Books, often I have books from them around poetry. They have there is an anthology of poetry around sex work. They have a very cool publication, and they published this. So I read it, and it's a selection of journals, of diaries of Lou Sullivan, and the two person who made the selection, since it's a selection, are Alice Martin, who worked at the time of making the book, for sure, and now I don't know, as a digitalizer at the GLBT Historical Society of San Francisco. And then there is Zach Osma, who is an artist, and both are two trans masculine people, or trans individuals, how do you say in English, subjectivities. And they made this selection, which is that turns those diary into some sort of novel, because they decided to present like the dates that often in a diary are at the beginning of each entry, but they decided to divide the book into sort of chapters, and the chapters are a span of time, so that inside you can read as a continuity. And so I've read that they say also that they decided to take off like so the Dear Diary or the dates, but also all those repetition that may happen when you keep a diary. So I've read this and I was like, oh, I feel this person so much. And then at that time I looked, and then after a while I arrived on this book, Young Man Selected Diaries of Lou Sullivan, and I was like, weird. And of course, it's the very same book. It's the very same, like from the very same Ellis Martin and Zach Ozma. It's just a different edition. I guess that the rights from like this maybe smaller publisher were bought back. And so I as you can see, I took a lot of notes. And then I watched interviews, and then I contact Ellis Martin, one of the two people who selected the diaries, and I say to this person, I would like to draw about Lou Sullivan, about the diary. Can you tell me more? Can you send me some place or title of books that I can study more? And this person was so kind, because they say to me, okay, here's for you the contact for the GLBT Society, so that you can have a chat. And so I contact them, and anyway, long story short, or short story long, I had access to the digitalized archive of Lou Sullivan diaries, and it was very moving. And there are so many folders. There are like box 1, box 2, and in each box there are so many folders. And because Lou Sullivan kept a diary for all his life, like he started at like 10, something like this, 10, 12, and he died at 40 years old. And so like there we have a lot of year of journaling. But I might say, for me, I don't know if it's a reading problem or English problem or digital problem. It was very difficult to like stay on track with all the folder and all the reading. So I read, and sometimes I go, okay, I pick this and I pick this, and some pages are very moving, some other are more difficult to understand, maybe if you don't read all. And in a moment, and then in all my, sometimes I compulsive shop for books, and then I put them aside. I don't only buy books that I read, I buy books sometimes because I need to have those books close, and I guess it's okay. I guess that it was Umberto Eco that said this, like this library at home has, I don't know how many volumes of books, and he said this, that you don't need to buy to read, but you can buy to have and consult later. Anyway, I had bought this Lou Sullivan, Daring to Be a Man Among Men, from Bryce D. Smith. And I bought it, I guess, on Amazon. The feel, feels like a print-on-demand book, but it's from Transgress Press, which is like you can find their book at transgresspress.org, and they have a lot of gender and transperson books. And so this is a biography of Lou Sullivan from Bryce D. Smith, and it's very detailed. And you can see at the end of each chapter, you have so many footnotes, and all the footnotes you can see are from the archival of Lou Sullivan. And I have bought this book, and it's been sitting in my library for so long, because I say to me, okay, I've read the selected diary. I know, but I didn't, of course. I don't know if I guess it's a real thing. I don't know the name, but the less you know about something and the more you think you know, and the more you start studying, and the perception of the knowledge of this particularly subject become from flat to tridimensional. It's like, and for me, it's like the more I read about Lou Sullivan, and the more this owl way of knowledge become, the longer and longer. And so this was very interesting, because it gives like a reconstruction of Lou Sullivan life, but also the context of society in which he was living. Anyway, let's come back to the week I've just passed. So I've sort of finished drawing the part of my book which is in color, and which is my life. I didn't finish per se, but I finished what I have planned to do about this part for now. And now I'm going back to choosing to draw Lou Sullivan diaries as a flashback in my book. But I guess that reading the diary and turning them into pages feels very natural to me, because diary and journaling for me, it's my language, and I want to keep this very fresh. And I'm not a biographer, I'm not a theorist. I want to tell one part of Lou Sullivan's story as a sort of way of connecting to my story, or also to create like a trans narration. But also what I'm doing in the flashback, it's I'm starting because for a long time Lou Sullivan lived as a man, as a cross-dresser, as he used to self-identify himself. He never identified as a lesbian butch, never were interested in dating women, but he since forever identified as a man and as a gay man. And so you start the journals, and there were no such things as choose a name or pronoun, but he had already started this kind of consideration from a very, very young age. And so I started the journals as like, I'm not sure if it will be problematic, but for now, my choice is not erasing this part of his life. So I'm using his name, like before transitioning, that was Sheila. I'm using like a little girl going into the world, but also I'm using this not as a way of course, essentialize we trans people being biologically, and my book starts with this. So I guess that how do you say in English? I openly state my ground. Like my books start like me trying to go to at the gym, in the place where you change yourself, changing rooms, and not daring to do this for fear of being rejected as a real man, and thinking about all the things that like transphobe may say, like, yeah, you present as male, but if people, archaeologists, will find your skeleton 20,000 years from now, your skeleton is a female skeleton, you know, all this kind of transphobe shit, like, who cares? And I start with this, like, so with an open consideration about who cares about my skeleton, and also like, this is bullshit. And so I stay this ground, but in the same time, I don't want to erase the history of this trans man that for a long time didn't have the word to describe himself. And so I've spent the week reading. I'm just here because I'm just at the beginning, because I took a lot of notes. I tried these things to go to the library for like the whole day, bringing my stuff and studying while being there with no distraction. And the thing is that even though you understand this in the journal, but I realized that I knew that I want to talk about Lou Sullivan, because we know that sexual orientation and gender identity are not the same. Like, I can identify as a man, but being like wanting to date women, or men identifying as a pansexual, gay, straight, lesbian, whatever, because my identity that has nothing to do with my sexual orientation. But at the time, it started like being involved in LGBT organization, the Gay People Union in Milwaukee, and it was like end of the 60s, how do you say? At the time, all there were few trans men known, and all the trans men want things that may identify them for the public, for the medical profession, was like, okay, you want to go with date women, so you don't want to be a lesbian, so you can transition and become a man, something like this, oversimplified, of course. And he never did this. He never said, the right word in order just to arrive to obtain your testosterone. He was so engaged, and he always said, yeah, I'm a man, but I'm a gay man. And he was denied so many times access to his transition. This breaks my heart, even though I'm talking like here. This is something get me so emotional when I read them. Maybe I can cry. Also, the fact that then he went to a therapist, and this therapist told him, you want to sleep with men, you want to date men. Well, you're not a man. You maybe are a lesbian. Maybe you are a lesbian. Sorry, you are a masculine, not lesbian, a masculine woman. Maybe you have to reconnect with your femininity. And he went from being engaged in the gay liberation movements in Milwaukee to moving to San Francisco, where the gay migration was happening in the 70s. He moved with his boyfriend that was like a gender fluctuant feminine guy, at least at the beginning, before becoming a very toxic anyway. And he moved there in order to find gay liberation, and he find himself trying to gain his like feminine side, and going to work. Like he started working, and at the beginning, like he went to like job interview like wearing a suit, and a lot of people didn't want him, even though it was the 70s San Francisco, and they wanted to hire like a woman, and no problem for hiring a lesbian, but they didn't want to hire a trans mask. And he went from this to finally find a job as a presenting male, to having this shrink that told him that maybe he have to regain his femininity, and so wearing dresses and things like this. And there is so much to say. Also try to date and pick up men, but he always had this like very gay man approach, very straightforward, very proactive. And when he was presenting as female, heterosexual cis men would look at him and say, this girl is crazy, or something like this. So there is so much to unpack, and so I'm having so much doubt around what my trajectory of the book is. And the more I study, the more I feel like an imposter. The more I think about it, the more I think about don't wanting to fuck it up. This is my graphic journal for my next book. I started it in November 23, so it's a long way, but I'm opening it because I want to give you, before we say goodbye, just some insight from my partner Justina, that yesterday, when I was like doubting so much, and we exchanged about all this, and Justina is doing a doctorship. I don't know how to say, a PhD. Sorry, a PhD in comparative literature, and his cursus is about, like his thesis is about the literature and the narration around the female body in the sickness, in the cancer. How do you say? Cancer narration. Anyway, I will maybe put in the description, because they have a Substack. It's called Suffer the Flesh. And so Justine, Nathalie Marzak, you can find their Substack. Anyway, and we were exchanging, so it's time to say goodbye. I don't want this to be too long, but I was having like doubt about all what I talk about now. And Justine said that this book is, of course, about what is masculinity for me, but also they say that my idea of masculinity changed even during my gender transition. I have different standards and different idea. And also they say that transitioning is not a straight line, and it wasn't for me. And now I realize that it wasn't not even for Lou Sullivan. And so they said something that like give me like goosebumps. They say, Lou is not a parable, but a life. So if you want to tell about Lou Sullivan life, the more you know about him, you realize that it's not something that, okay, and this is what we do, but it's real flesh, real person, real society in which we evolve as a human being. And they also say to me, every transition is different, but there are some echoes that are common. Also, last things they said was maybe your book trajectory is not an essentialist. How do you say in English? Essentialism. Essentialist. Like essentialism of trans identity or masculinity, or the idea I may have of a trans person, but it's more like their reality of particularism and individualism, of individuality of every history. And I find this very interesting. I hope that you find it too. And thank you for listening, and see you next time. If you are not on Patreon, because you are arriving on this on other ways, on sharing or something, please come on Patreon, free, paying. Even the paying option is not very, very expensive, and you receive merch as a present after 3 months. Or if you take the higher tier, you receive a present every 3 months, and very cool stuff. So consider find me on Patreon. But if you are listening to whatever, it's okay. Maybe you can engage with this post, even leaving me a comment to know that you are here. So yeah, maybe I want to know you. Ciao, bye bye. Okay.